Stan Efferding. I'm a powerlifter. IFBB Pro Bodybuilder. You want intensity? Come take a look. Yeah. Road to the Olympia, world's strongest pro bodybuilder. 10 weeks out, take you through and show you what I do for the workouts, get prepped for the competition. Okay. Bench day today, I can do a little chest workout. Today will be a heavy day, but it won't be my flat press day. I'll train flat press about every third workout. If you want a big bench, don't bench every time you train. You got to bench big, and you have to work your ancillary body parts doing inclines, dips, work your supporting muscle groups. And then you also have to have a speed day. Big bench is going to require some explosive speed training as well. So today we're going to do ancillary exercises. So do some heavy weights. We're going to be doing doubles. We're trying to work up to 5s to 10s. And we'll do a variety of different exercises that complement the flat bench press. That's what we're going to work on today. Everybody always asks me, you know, how do I lift these weights at my age and this much weight and not get injured? And you know, it's a whole process. You know, it's really important that you warm up well, and that just includes putting the sweat on. I don't stretch aggressively right before I train because that can actually weaken your muscles and tendons. You stretch on a different workout so you can recover from that. So I'll go through just enough range of motion to be able to do the exercises I'm trying to do. I'll warm up and make sure I got a sweat on. I'll always use neoprene on my elbows and try and stay real warm. Depending on the temperature outside, I might wear a sweater or a pad or something just to stay warm. And then I get started real slow and real gradual and work my way up gradually in the weights to make sure I can handle all that weight. It's going to go a little slow at first here because we're going to work up to quite a bit of weight. I want to make sure that we don't stretch or pull anything. The only way I'm going to lift big at the Olympia is if I get there healthy. So I'll always train with these neoprenes on my elbows. Cold taffy breaks, warm taffy bends. So you got to keep those tendons pliable, keep them warm. I know sometimes as you see me do my big lifts on YouTube or obviously in competition, you know, you got to take these off. But always when I'm training, I'm wearing these as much as I can. This is just a neoprene, so it doesn't what I call crutch the joint. Sometimes folks will wear something a little heavier, which I do as well, but I won't wear them all the time because anytime you wear something really supportive gear like this, you can actually weaken a joint or weaken a muscle group. It's kind of like you know, wearing a cast on your ankle or something. The muscle will atrophy and you'll actually get weaker. So I'd be cautious. I only use these as I get up to really heavy weights. Same with the wrist straps. I only use them when I get up to really heavy weights, when the muscle strength exceeds, you know, the tendons and the flexors' ability to do the work. So we'll get warmed up real well. We'll just start with the bar. Do a modest stretch. I don't do anything aggressive here. I'm not trying to thin that muscle out and make it weak. I'm just trying to make sure I can go through the range of motion. Leo, come on over. Let's roll this. My training partner, Leo Wells. 6 years now, I think we've been doing this together. What are you pushing, 50?
Strongest guys I know.
You pushing 50 now, Leo? 49.
Kind of, you know, bodybuilder.
So we're both a couple of old guys.
Yeah.
But we're hanging in there and we're healthy because, you know, we train smart and we take care of our bodies, and show you how we can lift some big weights and not get injured. It just requires that you pay attention all the time. It's a gradual process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So, knock on wood, I've never had any significant injuries. Occasional tendonitis when I try and push too hard. I got to be cautious and make sure I work up gradually. When you're getting ready for a big lift, or if you want to max out, all the big-time powerlifters will pyramid into that kind of a meet, meaning that they won't try and bench their max every single week, you know, pushing it up 5 pounds if they can here or there. They'll deload. They'll start, you know, if I'm going to go bench a 600, I might start 10 weeks out benching, only going up to 500 for sets of 3 to 5, and you know, slowly week over week add 10 to 15 pounds, and gradually reduce the reps to 2s. And I might not even do a single until I get to the meet. That might be the first single I do. But it's, you know, it's called pyramiding or periodization, as a lot of folks in the industry like to call it. And we just try and gradually work ourselves up into a max. Otherwise, what happens is you overload your body, you're going to start dropping off. Almost everybody knows that, you know, when you try and max every week on the bench, it starts to dip, it starts to get weaker, then you get frustrated. Whether I'm doing the bar or 135 or 2 1/4 or just working my way up, every rep, every set is the same. The bench press is initiated through the feet. It's an explosive movement that works through the whole body. If you just try and stand and push right here, you're not going to be very strong. But if you get your hips down and get your feet back, and now try and push, you'll be real strong. It's the same on the bench press. You want to get your back arched, get your hips down, get your legs into the movement. You're actually starting the push for the bench press, starts from the feet. It pushes all the way up through the hips and then explodes through the chest. So as weights go up, I'll talk to you about setting your body up like a spring to actually coil up and explode. So what I'll do is I'll get into position, get the back arched, get the shoulder blades pinched together and down. I'll grab the bar and I'll initiate just a little bit of tension on the bar. I don't want somebody to lift out for me and then try and establish a base, because it's too late. You already lost your arch, you already lost your spring load. So when somebody lifts out, you should already have tension on the bar. Shoulder blades should be closer to your hips than if you were flat, and together and arched, so that when you take that weight, the spring's already loaded. And as you resist the weight on the way down, it's like a spring, and you should be able. It should come down to the base and just pop right up through the feet. Another thing that's important is that you resist on the way down with your lats. So you turn your elbows in just a little bit, and as the bar comes down, your lats are actually resisting by pressing against your tricep. Try that one time. If your arms are out here, there's nothing to resist. So when you get up to your heaviest weights, it's just going to come down like that and cause you to have to do twice as much work. Resistance with the chest on the way down, press with the chest on the way up. What I'm doing here is I'm resisting with the back on the way down. I haven't even begun to activate my chest yet on the down movement. Resisting with the back, and then I explode. This is for a max effort, max bench press. We're not talking about what we do pre-contest to stimulate the most muscle tissue for bodybuilding. This is about power training, about getting as strong and lifting as much weight as you can. That's the technique we're going to be focusing on between now and the Olympia. Well, this is my bag of tricks. You know, I refer to them as gimmicks. And as I slowly work up in weight, I add a new gimmick about every set. Throw some chalk on. As we get heavier, we'll add a belt. We'll add some wrist straps. And we'll just keep working our way up. Now on the base, you're getting your feet underneath you. They're not out here, they're not, wobbly. They're underneath you because I'm going to be driving through the feet, through the hips. It'll be a drive, I'll push off. But instead of my body going up, the weight will go up. Now I'm going to drop. Some people push off the bar to try and get my shoulder blades down close to my hips. Get a good arch. And then I'm pinching my shoulder blades together on the bench. And then I'll put tension on the bar. That locks me into position. If I let go of the tension on the bar, look what happens if my chest caves in. My chest caves in, and my back flattens out against the bench. I'm losing that spring-loaded quality that allows me to push through my feet. Because if my chest is caved in and my back's against the bench, I'm not going to be able to explode through the feet. So I stay locked in here, pick off, nice and stay nice and tight. If you're trying to do a max lift, it's important not to get a pump in the muscle. It sounds contrary to bodybuilding, but this is about power training. Muscle fibers, they slide across each other like this as they expand and contract. Now if you get those full of blood, they start swelling. It's harder to slide those fibers across each other. It makes it harder to lift your max weight. So we're not shooting for a pump. So when I'm warming up, all I'm trying to do is make sure my muscles can feel the load gradually until I get to my max. But I'm not trying to put a pump in there. I won't do 10 reps. I'll do 3s, 2s, just to gradually make sure I'm allowing my body to compensate slowly to the load so I don't pull or tear anything. Another way to do that is good rest period. Let that lactic acid dissipate, let the muscle completely recover, get all your oxygen back. And that might take 3 minutes between sets. As you get heavier, it might take longer. You might spend 5-6 minutes between a set to be able to get 100% of your strength back so you can make the big lift. There's a mental aspect to this too. The lighter the weight feels, the stronger you're going to be. Sometimes I'll do 135 again, or I'll do 2 1/4 again. So the first time you do it, you're kind of feeling it, your body's stretching out. You're just getting used to the range of motion, finding your groove. Second time you do it, the thing just explodes out of your hands. That's the mental part that allows you just to keep progressing. And as long as you don't have a limit mentally, you shouldn't have a limit physically. See, I explode those reps with a lot of speed. And I also have a speed day where I train just for that. And the reason being is that when we get up to a 500 or 600 pound press, you're not going to be able to tricep lock that thing out. You need to build as much momentum as possible. The faster that thing comes off the chest, the more momentum you can build, then you can decelerate on the lockout, which is going to happen anyhow because there's so much weight. But you're going to want to always develop a lot of speed. And powerlifting out of every lift, whether it be the squat, deadlift, or bench, you got to come out of the hole hard and strong because finishing that lift is going to be easier if you explode out of the base. I know you really shouldn't need a pick off on 2 1/4, but like I said, when I'm training, I try and do every set the same. And I want to have my body all coiled. I don't want to, when I pick off, I want to be already in position. I don't want to be up here trying to pick the weight off and then try and wedge myself into position. Set my feet, my shoulder blades together, grab the weight, applying a little bit of tension. The weight's coming off just a little bit, applying a little tension. I keep that tension on so that my shoulder blades stay in position. Leah will bring that out to me. Go. And now my body never moved. So when I start to coil up, like the spring explode right through the feet. Didn't have to reset anything. This little gimmick right here when I was training at Super Training Gym down in Sacramento with Mark Bell, big time powerlifting coach and powerlifter himself. I had just come off competing in the Masters Nationals, and I was down to probably 255 after all the photo shoots and whatever. I was all dried out and really low body fat and lean, and I went in there and immediately I started trying to lift heavy. And the first thing that happened is when I got in and started lifting heavy is I started getting tendonitis. And I had forearm flexor tendonitis, I had elbow tendonitis, I had bicep tendonitis. I was going to the chiropractor and I was doing icing and getting deep tissue massage and electric stem. It was a tough time. I thought I was going to have to drop out. Well, Mark Bell comes up with this deal. And what this is I showed you those thick elbow wraps that are made out of knee wrap material, just like these, but they're made out of a really sturdy, strong knee wrap material. Well, that's what this is right here. And so you pull this up over your elbow, and this is an extremely tough material. When it bends, it gives you a lot of help. Well, then he connected the two with the same kind of material right here. So now not only am I getting less tendon strain when I'm bringing the weight down to its fully stretched position, but also across the chest. You'll notice when Leo was lifting, I'm getting less impact on the pec and the shoulder. Most of the injuries occur in the bottom position. That's when you're most stretched, when your body's the most compressed, and your shoulders and chest are completely stretched out and are under the max load. Plus the fact that force is mass times acceleration, and a lot of people will bring that weight down quickly. So the force at the bottom is multiplied by the speed at which you descend the weight. So if you're bringing that down fast, you can imagine at full stretch, at full momentum from that weight, that's where the injuries are going to occur. And you're going to start getting problems with your shoulder and your pec and your elbow tendons on that compression at the very bottom. This eliminated that. It decelerated the weight. It makes the weight lighter at the bottom than it is at the top. At the top you got full weight. Down here it might be 50 pounds lighter as a result of this thing absorbing the weight. Kind of like wearing a bench shirt, but it's something you can put in your bag. This is an old prototype model that he made for me last year. It was the first one he made. And he made it for me to help me get through that rigorous training regimen, and it worked. My tendonitis eased up. I was able to still train heavy, but it's an effective tool, and I use it. And I brought one in for Leo to use because he was having some shoulder problems, and now he can still bench heavy and not have those shoulder pains or the tendonitis in the elbows, because where all that strain occurs is now being assisted by that material. Try and make every set the same. Make 405 look like 135. Every set the same. The goal here is to get warmed up nice and gradual, so you're not putting the undue pressure on the tendons and the joints. The muscles get used to the load so that when we get heavy, they aren't surprised by it. And that's how we avoid injury. Sometimes I gotta switch gears if I feel any twinges or any pain, and move to a different exercise, or just not go heavy that day. I gotta constantly listen to my body. You can't train hurt, and you can't compete hurt. So we're just constantly pushing ourselves right up against the limit while staying healthy, so we can get to the meet, 100% and do the best we can. It's one dumb day and one injury, can blow the whole event for you. gimmick. Tying the shoe is another gimmick. The drive comes from the feet. So on this set, we want to have everything in play. We want to have it from head to toe. We want to have our wraps tight, our chalk heavy, our belt tight. Everything's in play. Leo, we got to put a little 2.5 on there, $4.95. So doesn't sound as good as 500. I didn't know what these were for the longest time. I thought they were like coasters for your cups, but I didn't know anybody actually used these things. It just sounds better to say 500. See how important the groove is on that one. See that third rep went way out of the groove. Came out in front of me instead of up and back. A lot out. We'll do some incline dumbbell press. I know a lot of folks that finish bench press and come to do incline start running the rack. I do the 80s for 10, the 90s for 10, the 100s for 10. I'm gonna work up to one set here. That's what I call max effort sets or growth sets. I think my old school upbringing back in the mid 80s was always trying to get the most out of my sets. See that 500 still kind of winded me. So I'll go from a flat press to an incline press, or an incline bar today to an incline dumbbell. And again, I use this because it requires so much balance and coordination that it helps you stay in your groove. You notice on the third rep of that 500 incline, I wasn't in my groove. I came out here, and it took a lot to pull that back in. It was a long, struggling rep. This kind of exercise helps you stay in your groove. It works on all those surrounding muscle groups that pull and push against each other to keep you balanced. So I like the free weights, I like the balancing exercises. But I don't run the rack again. I don't come off of a bench for an incline press and go to 80s and then the 100s and the 120s and the 140s. It's a waste of time. I mean, if I do 80s for 10 and I could have done it for 30, what benefit am I going to get out of that? So I like to grab weights that I actually get some results from, what I call growth sets or max effort sets. And do something that'll actually overload my system. If you want to get results, you got to overload your body, and you can't do it by doing endless reps and sets of weights that don't cause your body to overload and adapt. So I'll jump on a 140 for 6 or so reps just to feel the weight one time because I'm going real heavy here. I'll go with 200s, and I got to be able to gauge this. Most clubs, that's about all you get. They might only go up to 120s or 140s if you're lucky, and in which case you might have to pre-exhaust, or your partner might have to push down on them, or you might have to do flies if you pass there. I bought these and brought them in because I wanted to challenge myself. are always a challenge. Like I said earlier, you got to be in it mentally, because if you don't have it mentally, you're not going to have it physically. Hardest part about these is just kicking them up, getting them into position. I only show the videos where I actually succeed at that, but I think currently it's about a 50% failure rate. Just trying to kick them up. Sometimes they get out of whack and fall. So today we'll show whatever happens. We'll see if I can get it on the first try. If not, you just try again. If something doesn't rip off your body, that's all you can do. These are 210 pounds. We got 20 10-pound plates, 10 on each side, and a 10-pound bar. Yeah. Let's go right out here now. Yep. That's good. This is how it all starts.
Light up, light up. Lighten up.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah. Come on, rep it. Come on. Come on, stand up.
You keep the noise down over there. I'm trying to concentrate. Ooh, yeah, I got out of whack there a little bit. Thanks, Leo. That's fun shit right there. That's fun stuff. I told you, if an arm didn't tear off, that'd be pretty cool to watch. Of course, it'd be pretty cool to watch the arm tearing off too. Close grip. Okay. Bench press. That's a max effort set. That's what I'm talking about. If you do it like that, there's no way you're running the rack. You can't do anymore. That's the way that Mike Menser used to do it. That's the way Dorian Yates did it. You get results from a set like that. Now, I talked about doing max effort sets and growth sets. What's heavy to you is what works. Don't worry, because you're not incline pressing the 200-pound dumbbells, you're not going to grow. If 100 is that hard to you, you're going to grow from 100. It's about overloading your body and what your capabilities are and continually pushing that envelope, pushing those limits. Get in here and break down the muscle tissue, get out, eat and recover. I don't like to spend more than an hour in the gym. Running a little long today because it took me so long to warm up. But this will probably be our last exercise because I want you guys to see what I actually do. I don't want to try and, dress it all up for the camera. But normally I'd be walking out of here right about now, except I took a 40-minute warm up on that bench press. So I'm gonna throw in a couple of tricep exercises here. Just one, just a close grip press. I got plenty of work on that incline bench and on that dumbbell press. My muscles will be sore, broken down, get stronger over the next few days. So we'll finish off these triceps, make sure they're challenged as well. Same thing on tris, growth set. I'm just gonna feel a couple reps, make sure that the tendons are comfortable with the movement. And I'm gonna do 1 or 2 sets as heavy as I can go, as hard as I can go with a spot, and I'll be done. a little trick on these. A lot of times when you do close grip press, you get some little twinge in the elbow, get some tendonitis, feels shitty at the bottom. And the reason for that is when you grab the bar traditionally, look at where my elbows are pointing. They're pointing out here. If you want to drop those elbows in so that when you come down they're close to the body, you got to change your grip as well. So don't try and grab the bar here and then just force your elbows in. That's going to cause that tendonitis problem. Rotate your grip slightly. Instead of the bar laying straight across your calluses, I'll rotate my hand slightly so that the bar rests here on the pad of the hand. I'll show you when I set up for the next set. We'll get a closer grip, a closer look with the camera. Rotate my hand slightly, rotates my elbow in. Now when I come down, the elbow's in line, no more tendonitis. One challenge with that rotated grip is that your spotter really needs to do all of the lift off. Because you're pretty strong here. As soon as you rotate that grip, it almost feels more like a French press coming off of here. There's no way you can French press 315 or 405 off the rack. So your partner has to bring that weight out to you, so it's sitting out here for the pressing movement. So here's your traditional grip. Right here, just right across the calluses. All I'm trying to do is rotate my hand just a little bit so that my elbow, see how my elbow comes in now, from here to here. And the bar sits on the pad of my hand. Now I'm already my elbows are already in a close grip position. All right, Leo, 1, 2, up. And that hits my triceps pretty good. I think that's about it for me. Remember I said I like to get in and out of the gym in an hour. If you take one thing from this video, the thing I want you to take is that you don't grow in the gym. All you do in here is break down muscle tissue. You do not build muscle in the gym. You can't lift more often, longer, and expect to get results. Your goal in here is to break down the muscle tissue as quickly as possible, because you grow during the recovery phase, eating and sleeping. I'll talk a lot about that in this video, because that's where all of my results have come from. It's an extraordinary discipline to the recovery phase. Take that from this, if nothing else. Anybody who has problems growing is invariably training too much and eating and sleeping too little. You swap those around, train less, eat more, you're gonna grow and get stronger every day. I know this is a power training video I'm talking about. With respect. Let's have top sirloin steak.
The 7 or the 9 ounce?
9 ounce house sirloin, no butter, baked potato with that. And then, you know, a little chicken breast with that too.
So a full chicken breast or half?
Full chicken breast with that, yeah.
How do you want your steak cooked?
Medium.
Do you want any soup or salad?
So we just wrapped up the power training chest workout. I told you guys that you know, the most important thing you can take from that workout is the recovery phase. And I talked about how important it is that you get your nutrition in immediately following a workout. So we went straight for the gym. We're over here at Applebee's now getting some food. There's an important window of opportunity. I know you've heard it 1,000 times. I'm going to repeat it again. There's an important window of opportunity immediately following a workout. The next 30 minutes to 60 minutes following a workout, when you really want to get yourself fed, start replenishing your body. It's hungering for all the nutrients that it lost during that workout. It'll absorb a lot more protein, it'll absorb a lot more carbs than it would at any other time during the day. So if you don't bring your food to the gym, you want to immediately eat following the workout. I used to bring, and still do sometimes, bring shakes to the gym, but I like to get solid food in now, particularly because I'm trying to gain weight and gain strength. And those shakes, they just burn right through you. So what we're going to try and do is feed ourselves as quickly as possible following the workout. And you want to get in, I think you want to get in at least 60, 70 plus grams of protein, 100 grams of carbs, get a modest amount of fats in. I think there should be 800 plus calories. One of the things a lot of people do is they'll have a little shake, or they'll have a can of tuna, or a little chicken breast, or maybe a rice cake. It's not enough food. You can't grow on that. You can't get big and strong on that. So what I encourage you to do is eat a lot more calories immediately following a workout than what you've historically done in the past. A scoop of protein powder probably only has 120 calories in it. It's just not enough to feed you on. So, even 2 scoops of protein, even if it's a weight gainer, might only have 300, 350 calories. It's not enough. Maybe if you put that with 2 or 3 cups of milk and you throw in some carbohydrate, with that, you'd be able to get, part of a meal, at least enough food to start feeding yourself on. One of the biggest things that I encourage people to do when they're trying to gain size and strength is to understand how important the diet is. Food is your God. And if you don't eat enough food often enough, you're not going to grow. It's just not going to happen. The training part's the fun part. It's the easy part. Eating is where the results come from, and it's the hard part. Having enough discipline to eat enough food, often enough, consistently enough, and choosing the right foods, that's where all the challenge is. It's never perfect, but I'm going to give you some general guidelines to help you understand what it is you should be shooting for. And I think that some of the things you should be considering is getting in at least 6 meals a day. I eat every 3 hours. Sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and have a meal as well, because I don't want to give my body an opportunity to lose mass, or my muscles to start catabolizing and lose muscle tissue. So I'll get in at least 6 meals a day, probably every 3 hours from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. And those meals consist of a good quality protein source, good fats, and a good complex carbohydrate. Don't be afraid of fats. You cannot grow without a decent amount of fats. It won't happen. Muscle is made up of protein and fat. Now, I'm not talking about intramuscular fat. I'm talking about the muscle cell itself is protein and globules of fat, the muscle cell itself. So you need to feed it fats. Not big loads of saturated fats, but quality fats, polyunsaturated fats. I shoot for about what I call a 30-30-30. About a third fats, third proteins, third carbs. And I try and get some of my fats from good sources, such as olive oils or macadamia nut oils, peanuts, peanut oils. Kind of what I'll do is I'll choose my protein sources to have a modest amount of fat in them. I stay away from cheese, I stay away from mayonnaise, I stay away from butter, I stay away from some pork products like bacon, sausage, because most of those could be 70, 80, 90% fat. But I do eat lean steaks. I'll stick with like a top sirloin as opposed to maybe a flat iron or New York steak, which would be upwards of 60, 70% fat. A top sirloin steak would get down to 40, 30% fat or less. I'll stick with a 90+% lean beef, or a 93 or a 96 even, depending on whether I'm pre-contest or off-season. I can't get specific enough to answer the questions from every type of individual that might watch this video. There's powerlifters, there's bodybuilders, there's people in the off season, there's people dieting for shows. But I'm going to give you some guidelines that I think apply to everybody. And then from there, you can make some choices to meet your specific needs. And you're going to have to eat enough food. That's the big challenge. The quantities have to be large enough so that you can grow muscle, you can build muscle. Somewhere along the line, I don't know where it happened, so I guess somebody went into a gym and saw some quote-unquote bodybuilder eating tuna fish and rice cakes and thought that was a bodybuilder's diet. So every time you hear about somebody going on a bodybuilding diet, they start eating chicken or whitefish or some rice cakes or a little bit of oatmeal, and they can't figure out why they can't grow. It's not enough food. 4 ounces of chicken is like 100 calories. You cannot grow on that little food. I have to eat over 6,000 calories a day just to maintain my weight. If I want to grow, I need to get up to 7,000, 7,500. So depending on what you weigh and what your goals are, you're going to have to start taking in more total calories. The more strict and the more specific diet you try and put yourself on, I think the less opportunity you have to succeed. If somebody tells you you have to eat 4 ounces of this and 2 hours later you have to eat 6 ounces of that and you can have 2 servings of this, you're never going to stick with it. There's no way. But you can follow general guidelines within a normal lifestyle and consistently get enough meals, enough of the right quantities of food to continue to grow. And I can eat at any restaurant and choose sirloin steaks, rice, potatoes, vegetables, chicken, salmon. I have to eat enough of it in order to get all the calories I need, but I can choose those foods just about anywhere I go. It's a lot more important to get something in, even if it's imperfect, if it's not, ideal or exact, than to get nothing in. I think that there's a lesser of two evils that is that you eat something that isn't perfect as opposed to not eating at all. Because if you skip a meal, you're going to start metabolizing muscle tissue and you're not going to grow. It's not going to happen. And you just choose to eat the food without the butter. You can choose a leaner cut of steak, or you can choose a potato and without the sour cream and butter to make up your meal. If you can't cook every meal and take it with you and eat perfectly all day long, you still don't want to skip meals. If I have to, I'll stop at a fast food place and I'll just choose, to get my food without cheese or without mayonnaise and maybe a chicken sandwich, but I'll have to eat a few of them to get enough calories, just as long as I'm not missing meals. And I think if you follow those simple guidelines, that you'll be able to consistently grow and make the best of your recovery phase. Now, I tell you this from experience. I'm the guy that was 145 pounds when I graduated from high school. I was lifting weights for almost 3 years and competed in my first bodybuilding show in 1988. I was 21 years old and I weighed 160 pounds. So I was not a big guy. When I first started lifting weights, I couldn't even bench 135. Nobody ever would have suspected that I would be 290 and benching 600. And I made all the mistakes. I made all the mistakes that I see everybody else making as they're coming up in bodybuilding or powerlifting or trying to gain size or strength. I train too much, I eat too little. I used to work out 7 days a week, 2 hours a day. Sometimes I'd do them twice a day. And I would never eat enough, or I would be eating too lean of food. I wouldn't be getting enough fats in my diet or enough total calories in my diet. And I wouldn't be eating often enough. And I was having a hard time growing. After 3 years of training, only to be 160. And 2 years later, in 93, I won the Mr. Oregon. I was only 200 pounds. So I had made some significant gains, but winning a state championship at only 200 pounds at 6 foot, that's not a big guy. 3 years later, I competed in Mr. USA. I was only 217. So I've always been a slow gainer. I have this really fast metabolism, and I had to learn to eat accordingly to my body type, which meant to eat a lot of food and to make sure I got in a significant amount of good fats. I also had to learn to train less, stimulate the muscle tissue breakdown, and eat more and more to try and grow and get strong. I didn't compete in the powerlifting meet until I'd been training for over 10 years. think it was 1996 finally. The first bodybuilding show was in 88. I did a powerlifting meet in 96 and another one in 97. And then as the story goes, I took 10 years off of bodybuilding, took 12 years off of powerlifting. And just worked and ran my business before I made a comeback. So I'm not somebody who has 20 years of powerlifting under their belt. I'm not somebody who was 200 pounds in high school. That wasn't me. I'm the hard gainer, the slow gainer, the guy who was weak in high school and had to slowly and gradually over many years and learning many lessons get to where I was through an extraordinary discipline towards the recovery phase. I didn't go hang out, I didn't party, I didn't drink, I slept well every night, I ate every meal. I had to have an extraordinary discipline to make sure that I could catch up to or compete with guys who may have been more fortunate genetically than me to have more muscle or to be a faster gainer. And it all came down to these fundamentals, these basic principles. Is to stimulate the muscle tissue breakdown with max effort growth sets, in and out of the gym, getting the best results you can from your workout, and then getting the nutrition that you need to start to grow. 6 meals a day, high quantities of quality food, consistently, day over day, week over week, month after month. I see a lot of people that come in and out of the gym and they'll take time off, and you get these oscillating results. You have to consistently build on these foundations over time. And I took, what was a 145-pound body coming out of high school, 160 pounds on stage in 1988 to 260 pounds on stage in the 2009 Masters Nationals. And that, is just a testimony to what can be done. I don't believe there are limitations. Everybody thinks there's some, magic trick or somebody's more genetically inclined than others. I'm the least genetically inclined guy out there. I'm just the blue-collar guy that put the work in. I was your 98-pound weakling. I wrestled 98 as a freshman, sophomore, and junior in high school, and I didn't even have to diet. I was 98 pounds as a junior in high school, so I'm your quintessential 98-pound weakling who, through lots of discipline, lots of good nutrition, and basic fundamental principles, was able to slowly, over many years, it's a marathon, not a sprint, gain a significant amount of muscle and bring me to where I am today. Well, we finished eating. We'll come over to show you my office. We're going to sit down and talk to you about some more important aspects of the recovery phase. So come on in. It's after hours at my office. We're going to take a quick walk through, and then I want to sit down in my office for a bit and talk you through, like I said, more about the recovery phase. When I set this business up, I put in a little gym for the staff so they could train. I don't really use it much myself, but it's been good for them. So they can come in here during their lunch hour and exercise. Put in some cable TVs and some cardio equipment and some so it's pretty complete. Threw in some hammer strength and a squat rack and dip bar and Smith machine, some other small things. People often ask me, where do you start in changing or implementing a program to optimize your growth and optimize your gains? And I always start people with a blood test. Always trying to find out what's going on with you. If you don't have a blood test, how can you make decisions about what type of supplements you need, what deficiencies you have, where you're too high and too low? That way you're not out there just shotgunning. If somebody tells you vitamin something or other is good for you, you don't even know if you're deficient, so how can you guess where to start? It was with everybody that I work with, and I've been doing this for myself for almost 25 years. I can remember when I was 19 years old in college, going to a trainer who suggested this for me. I visited a sports doctor there who was very helpful, and I've been doing this ever since. For me, it helps guide my progress. It helps me understand where I have deficiencies and where I need to make improvements. I'm going to give you an example and talk you through some of the things here if you don't know what to ask your doctor for. But some of the things that we check is our red blood cell count, our white blood cell, red blood cell, the hemoglobin, hematocrit, and we try and find out if that's optimized. You want to make sure that your red blood cell count is elevated, because that helps with recovery and energy. We do a basic glucose test to make sure that you're not borderline diabetic. Lots of folks, if they're overweight, tend to have a problem with insulin sensitivity issues, and they might find that they're taking in too many carbohydrates and they're not absorbing them all, and they might even be borderline type 2 diabetic. If you don't get a blood test, you won't know, and you won't be able to manage that with your diet. Kidney and liver enzymes by doing your AST and ALT measurements to find out if you've got elevated kidney and liver enzymes, to find out if you have any problems metabolizing or processing whatever it is that you're eating. You're going to find that if you're a serious bodybuilder or a serious powerlifter and you're eating lots of food and you're breaking down lots of muscle tissue, that you're going to have some elevated enzymes anyhow, because just the process of your liver having to metabolize the breakdown of the muscle tissue, the repetitive, and you're doing this all the time, you're going to have slightly elevated, but you want to make sure it's not out of control. Your cortisol, because obviously cortisol is a catabolic hormone. Make sure that your cortisol isn't too high. Your cholesterol is all part of your cardiac risk function. You want to make sure that your cholesterol isn't outrageous. You can control that with your diet. There's a better indicator of cardiovascular health is your C-reactive protein. You're going to want to test that as well. That seems to be a more closely related indicator to whether or not you'll have a potential event, cardiovascular event in the future. Look at your iron. Men tend to be high in iron. They tend to eat more red meats. If you're taking in a lot of red meat, I take a multivitamin without iron, because I already know that I tend to have high iron as a result of the blood tests, largely due to the fact that I eat a lot of protein. So you want to test your testosterone levels. Free testosterone and your circulating testosterone. You don't have any way of knowing whether or not that's a deficiency, and if that's a deficiency, you're going to have a hard time gaining muscle. And as you get to be my age, a lot of guys will go to doctors and find out if they have a problem with testosterone, because they might not be able to hold on to lean body mass, or might have a higher body fat percentage than when they were younger, and that could be a source of the problem. Your vitamins, vitamin D, hugely important, but how do you know if you're deficient if you don't get a blood test and find out? You just don't want to go popping vitamin Ds, because they're fat-soluble vitamins, and you don't want to be taking too many fat-soluble vitamins that you don't need. You test your B vitamins, C-reactive protein I already mentioned. IGF-1 is an indicator of whether or not your body's producing enough growth hormone. Growth hormone stimulates IGF-1 production, and you can measure IGF-1. Find out if you're deficient there, particularly as you get older. You get into your 40s, 50s, 60s, and you have a deficient testosterone, deficient growth hormone, you're going to have a heck of a time losing body fat and increasing lean body mass. Those are things that you need to get in front of. The test is estradiol. You want to make sure that your estrogen isn't too high. You're going to have a heck of a time losing body fat if your estrogen's high. Thyroid, especially for the women that are having problems losing weight. If your thyroid's having problems, then it could be very difficult for you to lose weight. That's, I think, some of the key items that you should key in on, and your doctor may suggest some additional tests, but I think those are a minimum that you need to do. Rather than just reading an article about a certain vitamin or a certain supplement that you want to take or think you should take, you got to find out what you need first. You need to manage your deficiencies first. And if you know exactly what those are from having a blood test, then you can fix those problems, and you'll see more significant gains moving forward. I try and get in at least 2 or 3 times a year and get those tests. Your body does change depending on your workload and your changes in your diet. Athletes who are on performance-enhancing drugs and might switch from off-season to pre-season or off-cycle to on-cycle, you might want to get tested more frequently to find out how certain things affect your body. Obviously, you're going to have a bigger impact. Athletes who are using growth hormone have to understand that causes insulin resistance, so you could put yourself into a pre-diabetic state or even a diabetic state. Athletes who are using orals are going to have to realize that those are a lot more difficult for your liver to process and can start to elevate liver enzymes. Those are important factors. I think as far as health goes, one other thing you need to continually check is your blood pressure. A lot of the things I talk about in your blood tests, they're manageable and probably not critical, but are important for your progress. But your blood pressure is critical. And anybody who has an elevated blood pressure and thinks that they can eat anything they want or as much as they want just to get as strong as they can, and they're asking for trouble, because if that blood pressure stays elevated for an extended period of time, it's causing a lot of other problems and damage to your system. So make sure you get your blood pressure checked. If you're having any issues with blood pressure, then immediately you want to reduce your sodium, reduce your body fat, and start to manage that. And if you can't manage that, then there's blood pressure medications to work with. Trying to get too deep into that, but I think there are some real important key things that you need to get tested for, so you know how to start your program and then what supplements to take. I'll talk a little bit about supplements and where I go from here. I get the blood test done and I find out, I take vitamin D as a result. I take multivitamins without iron in them as a result of my blood tests. My cholesterol will be higher sometimes than others based on my weight, whether or not I'm dieted down for competition or whether or not I'm heavier for powerlifting and eating a lot more calories or higher fats. So I have to be careful to manage that. Because for me, it's longevity is important, and sometimes bodybuilding and powerlifting isn't necessarily the most health conscious pursuit, particularly when you're trying to compete at an elite level. So you try and maintain some sort of understanding of how to stay in this sport long term by addressing some of the things that can put you in a physically compromised place. Let's talk about protein powders. Everybody, when they start a program or want to gain weight or want to, they want to run out and buy a protein powder because they see that all these bodybuilders and stuff use protein powders. I'm not a big believer in protein powders, so I'll use supplements by themselves. I'll use protein powders on top of a meal if I can't get enough calories, or if the meal is short certain particular needed items, whether it's short on good quality proteins. I'll use protein powders post-workout. If I can't get a good meal in quick enough, then I'll bring that to the workout. But I don't rely on those things, and I don't use them in place of food. I would never have 3 meals in a row that was just protein powder. You can't grow like that. Your body will just burn right through it. I think you also need to be careful about utilizing a protein powder that's gives you the nutrients that you need and doesn't have a lot of the stuff in there you don't need. Some of these weight gainers are loaded with sugar or can be loaded with fats. I know, back in the old days when everybody thought that the only way to gain weight was to take a weight gainer, they were just loaded with sugar. And that's, anything ending in OSC, glucose, fructose, sucrose, maltose, corn syrup, all those things hiding as sugars. They just make you dizzy, give you a stomach ache. They don't, do anything for the buildup or repair of muscle tissue. So you want to keep those sugars low. You want to keep the quality protein sources high, and you want to use them sparingly, either to complement a meal or post-workout. And they don't replace food. And so don't run out and think you have to spend a whole lot of money on protein powders or weight gainers to get the results you want, because the results are in your food. Creatine works, but get a buffered creatine so that your body doesn't, your stomach doesn't degrade the full effect of the creatine products. Most products now, the Cre-alkaline technology has been sold to a number of companies that are using that with buffering technology, so that you can utilize creatine. Helps with strength. It's definitely effective. Multivitamins, B vitamins. During my workout, I'll take some either aminos or some glutamine just to help stem the breakdown of muscle tissue. Overnight, I'll take some aminos before bed or some glutamine, and I'll even need a scoop of peanut butter with that, just to extend the life of those proteins and and slow down the catabolism, the breakdown of muscle tissue at night. That's kind of the highlight of supplementation, of the things that I think are important that you definitely want to look into. So we gave you some general guidelines for your diet, gave you some general guidelines for what you need to look in terms of your blood tests, and we give you some general guidelines in terms of supplementation. That's a good starting point. Anybody who needs a specific program, you're always welcome to consult, some trainers. My website, stanefferding.com. You're certainly welcome to check in with me. I have some programs we can give you more detailed. But these programs are as specific as individuals are, and they change ongoing as your needs change and as your body changes. It's impossible in a video to cover everything for everybody, but I think that's a blanket, that's kind of an umbrella view of what I think everybody should at least start with, and what's really effective.
Well, we finished training and eating, and we made our way back to the house to relax for a bit today. And we're sitting out here in the backyard of my place on American Lake in Lakewood, Washington. There's an Air Force base next to us, and there's an air show going on. So you'll hear the jet fighters flying by as we talk here, and it's also a beautiful lake out here. We'll show you some shots of, and boaters going by, and it's a nice sunny day, so we've got the skiers and the folks on their little inner tubes out here. You might hear that from time to time as we talk. I get a lot of questions. A lot of people are interested in how I became successful in business, as well as the success I've realized in bodybuilding and powerlifting. That's a story much like bodybuilding and powerlifting, where I started with nothing, and over many, many years of work, very gradually was able to put myself in a position to start my own business and slowly become successful. Out of college, I had worked in an apartment community just as a maintenance guy, and then worked my way up to an assistant manager and then into management. And I had a good mentor there, and I learned all about real estate. And under his tutelage, we developed some multifamily real estate. So I learned a lot about that industry. And while I was managing apartments, we also, at the time, were in the business of trying to own and operate our own phone and cable systems. So I learned about that industry as well. That was probably 10 or 12 years of work, just learning to run a business, learning about those businesses. And then about 10 years ago, I had a friend that owned a phone company in Seattle, and I went to work for him and helped him build his business. So I learned, I used what I knew about the phone industry and what I knew about running businesses to help build his business. And then eventually, I broke out and I started my own venture. And about that same time, I got into a sweat equity deal where I had little or no investment capital, and I bought a small, junky, little rundown apartment complex. I knew everything about how to run one, and so it was a good opportunity for me to get in an ownership level and make that work. So while I was living in this dumpy little apartment and managing it and running it and trying to turn a profit on developing that property, I started a phone company out of that apartment complex, or out of that apartment home. Instead of living room furniture, I had a few desks in there, and I had some staff that would come answer calls. We would beat the streets and knock on doors and try and sign people up for phone service. That was the business that I was familiar with. It was what I had intellectual property. I had a long history of having worked in that industry, so I had a lot of knowledge about it. It was just time for me to take the risk. So I ended up selling the small home that I had in Seattle and cashing in my 401k and running up 120 grand in credit card debt and taking on another $250,000 in obligations to phone companies for bills to sign up phone customers. So at one time, I was over $300,000 in debt in that business and didn't have a penny to show for it. For the first almost year that I ran that business out of my apartment, I was barely getting by. I was scraping, but I had a good feeling that eventually, if I did everything the way I was supposed to do and I knew how to do, that I could build a success out of that. I was eating at McDonald's every day. I'd have dollar meals for breakfast. I had a couple of I remember I'd have Egg McMuffins for breakfast and 2 Big and Tasties for lunch with water, because I couldn't afford the sodas or fries, and some college food at night, maybe some top ramen or spaghetti or something, a cup of noodles. And that's how I lived for basically a year. I didn't go to the gym, didn't know where the gym was at. And then slowly but surely, as the business plan had told me a year prior, we started to gradually develop a profit on that business. We're finally able to start paying our bills and had enough customers to cover overhead, and started being able to pay down our debt. And 18 months or closer to 2 years into the business, we were finally debt-free and turning a profit. We were able to move out of that little apartment, sold the apartment complex and made a small profit, moved the business into a little warehouse space, and just started growing from there. Started expanding to other states, running television commercials on TV, and people would call us and sign up for phone service. And eventually, jumping forward over the course of many years, while I was building that phone company into a 100-employee business serving over 100,000 customers in 25 states, I had also used the small monies that I made from selling the apartment complex to buy another apartment complex. And then I bought another apartment complex. Then I sold it, and I bought another one. And I converted it into condominiums, and I sold those off. And I did that about 5 or 6 times over a 7-year period. And ended up selling, I think, upwards of 500 units, something in excess of $100 million worth of multifamily real estate that I'd invested in. And my phone company continued to grow and become successful. So that's the short story to the troubled beginnings, to the successful high times of the business. And as most people in the troubled economy, you know, I got bit too. We had built some homes, we had bought and sold real estate. I invested most of my money in real estate, my house, another home that I own, some homes in Oregon, a subdivision that I built. And then the phone company, of course, with the bad economy, started to have a less and less profitable return. So eventually we redirected our efforts and started another company that could survive this economy. So we started an engineering company down in Dallas, and slowly and eventually, gradually closed down the phone company. And while we were building up the engineering company in Dallas, the real estate took a nosedive. Everybody knows that, and most people lost their butts in that deal. Fortunately, I was in and out of most of the big investments, the big multifamily properties, and I just ended up with a subdivision of homes that was about half sold, and then my real estate that you know, that was supposed to be safe money, and that all devalued by 40%. So I realized, you know, I went from working stiff to you know, an in-debt, high-risk, about to go bankrupt business owner to a successful business owner to somebody like most people in that economy got pinched and in the market, and you know, have a more modest portfolio as a result of the turmoil in the declining market. But we're trying to come back out of that and build this new company. Right about 07 is when the market crashed. It was 2007, September of 07. I'll never forget it. And I ended up with a lot of free time on my hands. I didn't, you know, real estate wasn't selling, the phone company wasn't very busy. My startup was slow and smaller and more manageable. So I kind of got back into bodybuilding more aggressively at the end of 07. And in 2008 competed in the Emerald Cup and won that show, and then I met Flex Wheeler, and I basically had enough time and enough resources to commit to bodybuilding again, like I had done back in the early 80s and mid 90s. And so I took a run at it, and fortunately I was in a position to where I could work with some of the best people in the world. You know, I was able to go down and live in San Jose and train with Flex Wheeler every day, and I learned an enormous amount, and he was critical in my success in winning the Masters Nationals and turning pro. I couldn't have done it without him. And after that I was able to train with one of the best powerlifting coaches in the country, Mark Bell at Super Training Gym, and he was critical in my success in putting up the current highest raw powerlifting total in the world, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without him. So I believe these coaches are invaluable in their experience. I think that to be the best, you got to train with the best, and you know, I ended up realizing a significant amount of success as a result of working with those guys. So now I'm just continuing that venture. I'm still slowly trying to build up our engineering company in Dallas, and we're moving what, you know, little pieces of real estate we can move here locally at a much modified, reduced rate. Whatever we can get, we'll have to get. And I'm spending the rest of my time training, powerlifting and bodybuilding, and having a lot of fun with that, and looking forward to you know, building on those successes by winning the world's strongest pro bodybuilder competition at the Olympia in September, and then hopefully making the improvements necessary to have a better performance on a pro stage. And those are my goals, and I think it'll keep me busy for years to come.
Training, still a little chewed up from deadlifting. See those gnarls on that bar coming. Tore me up, ripped up my shins a little bit, but that's all part of the business. We can handle that. Now, while I'm powerlifting, it's not really necessary to come in and have a separate day for calves and biceps. Like Ed Cohn told me, biceps are like ornaments on a Christmas tree. They really don't do much. In the powerlifting world, you rarely see guys doing curls, but in the off season when I'm powerlifting, I still have to maintain these bodybuilding body parts so that they're ready and they continue to improve for when I'm competing on stage. So I come in once a week, even when I'm powerlifting, and try and keep moving on getting the arms bigger and getting the calves bigger. I've always had trouble with both those parts, but I've had good success over the last year using the theories that Flex Wheeler taught me. And like for the calves, we're doing sets of 60. We'll do a 20-20-20. 60 straight repetitions. The first 20 will be with the heaviest weight I can handle for 20. And immediately will drop the pin and do 20 more reps with a lighter weight. And immediately drop the pin and do 20 more. I'll try and do 4 sets of 60. It puts an enormous amount of blood in the calves, and I've been able to realize some growth from that. And then when we go to biceps, I'll talk you through kind of his theories there, what's helped me put over an inch on my arms in the last year. So starting out, we'll just try and get these babies warmed up and stretched out. Try and get as much range of motion as I can. I know some folks like to lock their knees out, but my hamstrings aren't terribly flexible. That puts a lot of strain on the back of my knee, and I'm really trying to focus the strain on the calf, so I'll bend my knees slightly. And get a decent stretch at the bottom. This is the first kind of warm-up set, so I want to get everything stretched out so I'm not feeling any aches and pains. Rest it up so I can get started. 4 sets of 60.
But I've lifted all my life. You know, even before I started training for bodybuilding shows after college, you know, I remember having a little weight set in the garage when I was 12 years old out there, a little sand-filled plastic-coated weights that the bar would bend every time you tried to put them all on there, which was only 100 pounds. So, you know, I've lifted weights all my life. And, and even when I wasn't competing, for the 10 years that I took off, but for the time that I was too poor to afford a gym membership, I was in the gym and I was exercising. And you know, I didn't have any intent on competing, but I loved to lift. I loved to go to the gym. I loved the feel of it. You know, and I wasn't huge. I you know, was probably just hanging out at 230. Maybe peaked out at 240.
As the blood gets in there, you're going to get weaker and weaker, and your range of motion is also going to suffer. It's like we talked about, when a muscle's engorged with blood, it's unable to stretch and contract as well. Not able to lock out anymore. Do whatever I can. So here's, I don't have any weight on it, just the sled, me and the sled. Stop working. Got as many as I could, so we went to failure with the drop sets. It's hard to feel it. Hard to see it on camera, but the blood flow is just awesome, the way it feels. The amount of heat that generates in there. Just try and kick that blood out, stretch it out. Do that again.
I don't have a certain size or weight or anything that I'm heart set on being. I want to be healthy and I want to be fit. I don't ever want to get sloppy. That's why it's important to me that while I'm powerlifting, I still maintain a relatively low body fat and stay in good condition.
Calves are one of the hardest muscle groups to grow. It's such a dense, resilient muscle. And it's strong. Every single step you take, you're moving your whole body with one calf. So it's built to be real durable and real strong. Sometimes I'll throw in a little heavier weights, but it doesn't seem to be nearly as effective. Higher rep, lower weight drop sets, just getting a lot of blood in there. You have to remember, you use your calves as stabilizers when you do your leg press, your squat, your deadlift. Those calves are stabilizing the weight you're pressing. So they do get quite a bit of stabilization stress from those heavy leg movements. So I use calf day just to pump them up as best I can. Get as much blood in there as possible. Try it again. Every set gets uglier than the last.
The powerlifting, I think, is pretty short-lived for me. I don't know that my body will hold up to these big weights for more than another year or two, but the bodybuilding, as long as you look at Troy Alves and how incredible his physique is at his age, and you realize that you continue to make refinements and improvements and, just be in extraordinary condition. And it's always been a part of my life, even when I was in college, when I was working, when I was running my own businesses, now that I'm competing. So training will be a lifestyle.
Reps so far. I only got about 18, 10. So. When I die out there, I'll have to finish the last 20 on the steps over here. By now the feet are cramping up and pushing off the bar to help yourself. Just doing whatever you can. Get all the reps in. Get as much blood flow in there as possible. I've already added some more size to the calves. It wasn't my gift, so I got to keep working hard at it. Rest long between sets to dissipate all the blood and make sure you're fully recovered. But bodybuilding movements, there's a little shorter rest time. Blood stays in the muscle. Pump them up. It's as full as they can get. Feeling like that. It's the best feeling in the world. Get those things pumped up so bad, it's hard as a rock. You can't even lift your own body weight. You're so full. You don't really flex too good when they're all pumped up. Start some biceps. Try and do the same thing to the biceps. Pump them up. So we're going to start a bicep workout. You know, back in the good old days, when I thought I knew better, I worked up to where I was curling 2 1/4 for sets of 10, 225-pound straight bar curls for sets of 10. But they were hideous. You know, it was the rock back, push with the thighs, knee bend, shoulder dip, you know, kind of drop sort of movements that you see here and there. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why the biceps wouldn't grow. And after working with Flex, what we decided to do was take the shoulders out of the movement and just isolate the bicep. This is something that Tony Freeman talks about quite a bit. He wasn't able to really put serious size on his arms until he stopped trying to lift all the heavy weights, stopped using his front delt as a lever for the movement, and started just squeezing the bicep. Got to check your ego at the door because your weights are going to drop significantly. And now we're just going to shoot for a pump. We're going to try and contract the bicep as hard as we can. And notice when I'm contracting the bicep here that I'm not rotating the front delt forward. I'm not using momentum to develop a bicep curl that ends in a little bit of a drop. I'm just going to be squeezing the bicep today. I use a cambered bar these days because I can't rotate my arms all the way out for a straight bar. I don't have the flexibility anymore. So I use these bent bars. The movement is going to be a curl right here. That's the movement. That's what the bicep does. The bicep's just curling the weight right here. I know traditionally you bring it up here, but that's using your front delt as a lever to get the weight up, using momentum. You can't get a good bicep contraction. Once your shoulder's up, if you try and contract your bicep with a dumbbell or a barbell in your hand, the resistance is now straight down. It's not pulling against the bicep. So we don't want to use our shoulder as a lever. We want to leave it down here. Now when the bicep's fully contracted, there's still resistance against the bicep here, as opposed to no resistance here. So that's the idea, is to keep constant tension, contract the bicep, eliminate the shoulder from the movement. Second thing I like to do is superset my exercise. I'll go from a straight bar to a dumbbell curl to a concentration curl, just like the calves, one after the other, using a slightly different angle or slightly different variation, but continually pumping lots of blood into the muscle. The more blood flow we can get in there, the better. It feels relatively warm. I got a sweat on. Tendons aren't screaming at me, so we'll start our giant set. We're tilted slightly forward, and the biceps doing the movement. The biceps curling, there's no shoulder in the movement. Getting full contraction. That's all the bicep does. There. It doesn't do this. It does this. Same thing with dumbbells. Contract here. I'm not doing this number right here. Contracting here. Leaning forward slightly helps me continually remind me not to get my shoulder into the movement. I have to start bringing the elbow forward and the shoulder up, just to contract the bicep. Finish with a little bit of a hammer curl, and again, just isolating the bicep. First set's pretty easy. Each set gets progressively harder, just like the calves. So eventually, you gotta lighten your weight or cheat your reps a little. Try and rest a minute between sets. It's hard for a fat guy in the off season because I lose my lungs real quick. Trying to tote around all this weight, rest just long enough to collect my breath, make sure I maintain the pump in my biceps. Keep doing this until they're just screaming, so you can't do a full contraction. You'll notice when I get to the third and fourth sets, my contraction stops about right here. It'll be fully contracted for me. I won't be able to, even without weight, I wouldn't be able to bring it all the way up.
long term, you know, I'll compete as long as I'm having fun. I do this for fun. I'm not, I don't have anything to prove to myself or to anybody else. I'm my own worst critic. I don't care what anybody says about me, good or bad. At the end of the day, I'm judging myself, you know. And I'm harder on myself than anybody can be, so I don't worry about it.
It's hard not to want to cheat. I so want to swing this thing up. I want to swing it up. Don't do it. Just try to squeeze. Next set, we'll drop the weight so we can get a full contraction.
And if bodybuilding continues to be fun and I continue to progress, and I think I continue to put together a good presentation, I don't want to linger around into my 50s up there just to show up on stage because I have a pro card and I can, you know, taking last place in shows. That's not my deal.
Last set with the hammer movements, a little more brachialis. Brachialis right here. You wouldn't think you'd breathe this heavy on bicep day, but once you start supersetting these movements, pumping a lot of blood in there, you're trying to isolate the rest of your body from your arm. It's actually difficult to hold your body back, not rock the hips, not swing the shoulder. The whole body's tense because you're just contracting the bicep, trying to keep everything else from moving. Blood pump's intense. Let's do it again. This time on dumbbells, so we try and get all the reps.
And so I want to be the best. I wanted to be the best 40 I could be. I want to be the best 50 I can be, you know, physically, mentally, and I want to be the best 60 I can be, and you know, continue to train in some fashion, whether it be you know, just bodybuilding or powerlifting, or whether it also incorporates some other types of fitness exercises. I want to be as fit as I can be for as long as I can be.
That's all the contraction I can do. Even without a weight, I can't go any higher than this. Biceps fully contracted right there. So there's no sense doing that. There's no additional benefit for the bicep. The shoulder does the movement. The bicep gets less work. A little heavier on hammers. Suppose if we wanted to make it look good for the video, we could grab some 100-pound dumbbells, swing the weight up, or do some hammer curls, which are easy. I want to show you what I found that actually works. Contract the bicep to the exclusion of all the other muscles. Mind-muscle connection. Just so you know you're working what you're trying to work. Keep pumping the bi, so let's do it again. You know, you really suck struggling with 35-pound dumbbells. I'm telling you, that's what works. If I can hang the ego at the door, you can. For the longest time, I was never able to get my arms up over 20 inches. Started working like this with legs, training like this for a year now, and they're easily over 21, 21 and a quarter. With my upper body mass and my shoulders and forearms the size they are, I'll probably have to get them to 22, not like Dennis Wolf's problem, just so they'll look decent on my frame, my back and shoulders, the way they are. It's just a matter of trying to perfect the proportions, so I have to keep focusing on the arms. Probably add another inch by pumping a bunch of synthol on the arms, but that'll never happen. I like to lift heavy weights. I like to deadlift big weights. Shit like that can only serve to weaken the tendons and cause a bicep tear. So, plus it looks like hell. So I'll keep mine on natural, pump them up. I just love to do it anyhow. So I'll take what I can get out of the workouts. How about we do that one more time? It's harder every set. Drop down to 30s. This is embarrassing. I edit this out. 30. That's it. That's all the bicep will do. That's all it'll do. Can't go any further. Fully contract. If that's all they can do when it's full of blood, there's no sense in using your hips, your shoulders, your back to work something else. We're only here to work the biceps. One more hammer. No better feeling. Biceps totally pumped. Touch my face. That's a great feeling. Doesn't make any sense to flex them. These are all pumped and swollen. It's hard to get a peek out of a swollen bicep. Feel the other. Do that hard enough. That was 12 sets. 4 times through on 3 different exercises. That could be a bicep burger. 20 minutes, in and out, we eat and grow. I'm gonna throw in one more exercise that I like to do. Talk you through how I do it. Similar to this, so I can concentrate on just the biceps. Just for your future pro. Flex used to live on this machine. Every time you ever see him in a video, he's usually on this machine, pumping his biceps up. And if you watch his form, you notice he doesn't rock his body a lot. He doesn't lean into the down portion. He doesn't get his elbow up off the bench and lean back on the up portion. Just like with these other exercises for biceps. If all your bicep does is this, then make your bicep do that. You don't have to do this, so do nothing extra for the bicep. You don't have to rock it back, pushing your feet off, and get your elbow up off the mat. Start using your shoulder. If that's not what your bicep does, don't do it. So get yourself locked in, keep the arm flat, stretch as far as you can, squeeze as high as you can. Flex had really good flexibility. He was able to stretch that arm all the way out. He was able to contract it a lot higher than me. My biceps are fully pumped right now, so this is full contraction. So what's the sense of doing this at the top? There's no more contraction. It's just a little body movement. Same thing to pump a lot of blood in them. I'm gonna do some 21s. I'll do a 7 at the bottom half. Help me focus on stretching the tendon out. I know a lot of people, including Flex, talk about building the lower bicep or the upper bicep, blah, blah, blah. Your bicep attaches to the tendon wherever it attaches to the tendon, based on your genetics. Some people have biceps that almost dive into their forearm, and I think those are beautiful. But it's misinformed to believe that you can take a bicep that stops here and ties into your tendon. Remember, the tendon inserts down here. If the bicep ties in here and the rest is tendon, you're not going to build bicep right here. It's not going to happen. So the whole bicep contracts, not the lower, not the upper. Whenever you flex your bicep, the whole thing contracts. You have an origin and an insertion, and the whole thing contracts one time. So you can't isolate certain portions and grow certain portions. So based on your genetics, where your origins are, where your insertions are, and your predisposition for slow twitch or fast twitch muscles and how big you can grow them, that's all you're going to get out of it. So do the best you can, but don't expect to have your biceps tie into your forearms like Arnold's if that's not what you started with. Do a bottom 7. Top 7. And a full 7. Great pump. 21 reps. Do 3 sets here, and we'll have done 15 sets for biceps in 35 minutes. It's way more than enough. You like to have your elbows in as much as you can. I don't have that kind of flexibility, so I do the best I can. It's really hard to concentrate on isolating your body from this movement. I keep wanting to lean forward and I keep wanting to rock back. You can see it in the movement. You see me kind of jerk a little bit. I want to jump in there and use my body to help. It doesn't help. Stay focused, isolate the body from the bicep. You get an incredible burn. I don't really do forearm exercises because of all the gripping that you do in here. Lat pull downs, deadlifts, long pulley rows, curls. Helps to get use of forearm on just about everything. So got plenty of size here. If anything, Probably a little too much because it detracts from the arms. And it's the ratios that give you those good places in bodybuilding shows. Is you have small joints, good muscle bellies, you're going to appear bigger and better than some thick powerlifter dude like me. So I just got to keep stabbing away. Again, that's full contraction right now. The muscle's so pumped. But the only way I can get my arm any closer is if I push it. So I really wanted to start rocking that weight. But your contraction's done here. If it's pumped and that's it, that's all you're gonna get. Rocking doesn't help. That's biceps. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful day. I love that blood. Let's go eat and grow. Well, today's deadlift day, and you probably already know it's a little hard to deadlift at the LA Fitness because you can't use chalk and you can't throw your weights around. So me and a group of fathead powerlifters just got a little setup here. It's one of these kind of spots that everybody likes to get in, train, do their big workouts in. So why don't you see what we can do today? Well, no sense wasting time. Deadlifts are pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of technique involved here. You got to keep the bar close to your body. I use an over-under grip. You want to keep your back flat and press the weight up. You know, deadlifts, one of the reasons that deadlifts have always been known to be the ultimate test of strength is there's not a whole ton of technique involved. It's just, however strong you are and however hard you can pull, get the weight off the ground. I think it's one of the best overall exercises for building thickness from head to toe, from your traps to your ankles is the deadlift. And it wasn't until I started deadlifting consistently and heavy that I was able to thicken my entire body, chest to back, entire torso, everything. From being a 160-pound guy, relatively thin, to slowly growing into a thicker, heavier powerlifter or bodybuilder. That happens with these basics, the heavy squats, the heavy deadlifts. So today we'll work up, again, relatively slowly, let my body slowly adapt to the weight and get used to it, so when we get up to the heavy weights, we're not pulling anything, but eventually we'll get up there, I'll be warmed up, and we'll try and do some big pulls today. Like I talked about with the bench press, we're going to try and pyramid this into the meet. So I try not to max out, I try and do doubles or triples. I don't do a lot of repetitions on heavy day. I'll never go over, say, 3 to 5. And then I don't deadlift every single week either. I'll deadlift heavy maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. It takes a long time for your body to recover. We haven't talked about this yet, but a lot of these big exercises, particularly the squat and the deadlift, they require a slow and gradual process of getting your body to adapt to the load, what they call training your central nervous system to be able to handle these kinds of weights, because that central nervous system gets impacted significantly from pulling huge weights or squatting huge weights. So gradually over time, you have to train your body to be able to handle these kind of loads. So we'll just get started nice and slow today, get warmed up. I try not to tire my back out, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of full reps. I never arch the back at the top like you see folks do. It compresses the spine. It's a bad idea, particularly with a lot of weight. In the lighter weights, I'll just get the legs used to the first half of the movement. Breaking inertia is the hardest part of the movement, getting the the bar off the ground, keeping your back flat, and I'll slowly get my body used to the load. I'm keeping it close to the body, feet about shoulder width apart. I use an alternate grip, and that helps me hold the bar so it doesn't slip out of my hands when I get real heavy. And then I'll coil my body up, just like with the bench press. When I grab that bar, I'm applying a little bit of tension. I'm keeping my back flat, and then I'm exploding the weight. So you'll see as I get up to 2 plates, 3 plates, 4 plates, you notice I'm just exploding off the ground as fast as I can. And that momentum helps me finish the drive. So I'm putting a little tension right here. You can actually see the bar coming up just a little bit. I'm applying a little tension to get started, and then I'm exploding. Everybody's different, because everybody's different height, different length of arms, different length of torso, different femur length. So you can't predict what the angles are going to be like. You can't predict until somebody grabs the bar how the back is going to look, how the angle of the hips are going to look. But the one important thing that you can do, and what everybody needs to do when they grab the bar, is to keep their back flat. If your hips come up and the back rounds, you're never going to be able to lift heavy. So your goal is to maintain a flat back. Drive with the legs. One of the most important things I tell people about the deadlift movement is it's not a pull, it's a press. It's a leg press movement. And if you picture yourself in a leg press, the weight coming down, compressing the thighs against the midsection, and then pushing up, that's the same kind of movement you want to replicate here. This is a leg press movement. Drive the heels through the ground, maintain the upper body and the lower back in a stable position. So I'm pressing. When I grab this bar, I'm not pulling the weight up. I'm pressing through the ground and just keeping my upper body stable, keeping my back flat. So I will press this through the floor, is what I'm thinking here. That's what's going on in my head, and that's the movement I'm trying to imitate. This bar's got a lot of gnarls on it. I'm already starting to tear up the shins, so I'll put some wraps on my shins today so I don't bleed all over the bar. But other than that, that's about all I'll use. Some chalk on the hands, and just gradually work up and get warmed up. This is a terrible shoe to deadlift in. I'll go in my socks today. You can see this big, thick rubber sole, and the shoes tend to get to wear unevenly as you wear them. You really want to be flat and as close to the floor as possible to reduce the range of motion. The higher the heel on the shoe, you're basically doing a deficit deadlift. And they also have a tendency to wobble or rotate because that rubber compresses. When I get up to 600-700 pounds, this will all compress. So I'll end up in my socks today deadlifting. Usually you'll deadlift in a wrestling shoe or even a slipper is how big time deadlifters will do it. These little things here, they're just elbow wraps, or knee wraps, but I'll put them on my shins today, just so the bar doesn't chew me up. Some people will wear socks and pull their socks up. A good deadlift bar has real good gnarls on it. Those gnarls will chew up your shins pretty quick, particularly if you're doing repetitions. You guys camera shy? Camera comes on, you all run off? Huh?
We figured it's all about you today, Stan.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot more to say about the deadlift, just to do it, so.
So when I'm powerlifting, a lot of folks wonder what it is that goes through my head as to psych me up as I'm prepping for a lift. And I don't really have a routine for that. I'm usually so prepared by the time I get to the meet that it's routine for me just to do the lift. And most of my enthusiasm or excitement comes after the lift, not before. And I don't really hear the music that's playing. I don't really hear people in the audience. I'm just so focused on what I'm doing. I'm thinking about the technique that goes into the lift. And I've just never had a consistent routine for that. I've always just stepped up and done what I've always done in the gym every week for 25 years.
We always set up the same, we always do everything exactly the same, whether it's 135, whether it's 800. You always want to do everything the same. Set up, create tension, explode out the big. Set up. Create tension.
It's so routine for me now that I don't have to sniff any ammonia or jump up and down or get slapped on the back, and it just doesn't do anything for me. I'm more interested in executing a technically perfect lift, and when that happens, then I'm excited. So I'll celebrate after. I won't jump around before.
People always ask about best exercise for your abs. Squats and deadlifts, #1 exercise for your core. I've never done sit-ups before shows. I've always trained with the heavy basic movements. Ab showers, just shredded, just blocks of muscle. You can't create that doing crunches. You can't create that doing sit-ups. You can only create that from doing these heavy basic movements that cause your core to stabilize your body. That's how you create huge amounts of thick, dense abdominal muscle, plus your hip flexors and your psoas major underneath and your intercostals. Those are all created from squatting and deadlifting, not from sit-ups. And then if you want them to show, then you diet the fat away and those blocks and bricks will come out. They're incredible stabilizers for this movement. That's why you don't see me wearing a belt on most of the lighter movements, because I want to make sure both my abs and my back are working together to stabilize my torso. And that's what the abdominals and the lower back do. They work against each other to hold your torso from tilting over or back on both the squat and the deadlift. And that's why you create so much thickness and so much muscle in your torso from doing these exercises, these basic powerlifting movements. And then as I get really heavy, I'll incorporate a belt, but you don't always need it on deadlifts. Because it's such a structured movement and you're starting in such a fixed position. There's not a whole lot of, like on a squat, there's a lot of opportunity for sway on the way down, on the way back up. There's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong. And so as you get heavier on a squat, a belt might be more pertinent. But on deadlift, you've got one job, and that's to stabilize your lower back while you're pressing with your legs. And that, oftentimes a belt doesn't do much help for you. And again, like I talked about with assistance, things like belts and rib straps, etc., they can tend to crutch a muscle. They can tend to weaken the muscle if you over-rely on those things. And so we use them as little as possible until we get up to our max set. rather work as heavy as you can until the grip fails, and then go on a strap and keep going in your hand. So you want to get as much work to your back as possible. You don't want the hands to be able to lift as much weight as your back can get. Same as when you're doing repetitions. If your grip fails after 3, 4, 5 reps, you still got 8. Then throw a strap on the next set. Did I say strap on? Throw some wrist straps. Wear some wrist straps. Yeah, one strap on. And do your next set so you can get all the repetitions. Not the limiting factor of these muscles trying to work your back. So we're going to pyramid up to the meet. We've got a 10-week run for Mr. Olympia. So what I try and do is I'll work up to 700 pounds today. Try and get a few reps here, and then gradually over the course of the next 10 weeks, I'll add some weight each week, and maybe come down to 3 reps, 2 reps, until I get to the meet, which I'll pull the heaviest weight. You don't want to max out prior to a big meet. Then you peak out and start having a decline in strength. So this will be our last set for the day, and I'll try and put in a few reps here and cap off the deadlift. And just for the record, this is Ben White's max, by the way. We got this for 1 barely. Let's see how I can do. Typically on deadlift day, we finish with some exercises to stretch the back out, like chins or a lat pull down, help stretch the back out. Kind of shy of equipment here, so we'll wrap up with that. I'll just do some hangs from the monolift to stretch it out. And then sometimes we'll do maybe a long pulley row just to get some more back work. But on heavy day, it's pretty much just trying to get as much deadlifting in as we can. And then, like with chest, we cycle the workouts so that next time I'll do ancillary exercises. I'll do chins, long pulley rows, lat pull down, one arms, or T-bars. Just a couple sets of each. That'll be a workout. And then we repeat some more exercises, and then third workout down the road we might deadlift again. So I'll probably only deadlift heavy about every second or third week. Give your body a chance to recover from that. It's more than just the muscles. There's a lot of tendon and ligament strain, bicep tendon, and there's also that impact on the central nervous system that you want to get your body to adapt to. So I try not to deadlift too often, particularly this heavy. And that'll help you continue to make progress without topping out or getting injured. And what I keep talking about over and over again in this video is putting yourself in a position to be as strong as possible, as successful lifts as possible. So that's another thing to consider. If you're going to have your workouts back to back to back, if you think you're going to squat and the next day bench and the next day deadlift, you're going to see a decline in performance. So spread those out and don't pre-exhaust or overtrain muscles that you're going to be working the next day. And I usually take at least a day, maybe 2 days off, especially after a deadlift session or a squat session. I'll take 2 full days off of training and then go do a bench, and then take another full day off before I train again. And that helps me get completely recovered so that I can be stronger for the next workout. All of it goes into being able to reach your max performance. All of the tips and tricks that I talked to you about As far as warming up slowly, not pre-exhausting yourself, not getting too much blood pump in your muscle, giving yourself plenty of rest between sets, all of that's going to help maximize your strength. Let's go eat. You know you're in the right spot when you've got barrel shot and a monolift. Then you made your way into a real gym. You know some weight gets moved around in here. You got Forza benches, monolifts, and chalk. We got some serious business going on here today, so it'll be fun. So I said we made our way out into the woods here to find Sasquatch of bench pressing. This is Ryan Kennelly, world record holder in the bench press. He's going to school us today, show us a few things about pressing, put up some big numbers today.
Take a look at your bench press shirt.
Yep, take a look at that.
All right.
Inzer sponsors the competition, and the promoters want to make sure that the athletes, because we're bodybuilders, don't injure ourselves. And so he's asked us to put on a compression shirt. It's an old 80s style standard last shirt. It doesn't add a whole lot to the lift. Maybe 10, 20 pounds is kind of universally what people expect, but it can prevent some shoulder injuries and some pec injuries down in the bottom of the movement. So we're going to try that today. We're going to do a bunch of raw work first, because that's what we do. And then we'll pop that shirt on just to make sure I can feel the groove and understand how it's going to affect my lift, so I'm not surprised by it when I use it at the meet.
Good. Better what you have. I mean, a lot of it, so much of it's technique. Feet placement, using your whole body in the lift, arch.
Ryan's going over 3 bills, but he's got that flexibility like that. He practices that. It's important for his bench. So if you can develop an arch, maintain a good arch, that helps bring your chest and your midsection up so that the bar doesn't have to come down as far, and you're also that, like we talked about, that spring, that coil, keep tension in the muscle, and then when it gets bent, pop back. And he's really good at that with his form.
I think technique is the biggest key, it really is. I mean, it's like Stan was saying, the arch, pitching the shoulder blades, shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and that's pushing that bar in a straight line. A lot of people take the bar and they push it over their face, which is a big no-no. And just technique really rules the day on the bench press. Squeeze that bar. Push that head back. Bar down, head back. Deep breath there.
Different grip than what I used to watch it. 13 years ago, it was like this.
Got the wrist right on that lift, but I still brought my head up on the first rep. Threw it back down for the second rep, but that's not going to work. Got to keep everything in line.
Check them out sometime.
555 is fine.
That's why you lose it. Comes out of your line.
Big believer in real tight wrist strap. You want to fuse that thing. Use that bar. 1, 2, up! Good and strong. Wow. Jason will grab the front. Oh, somewhere in there.
That's a little harder than I thought.
Yeah, it was. And it's uneven too.
I'm gonna let him rest just for a second.
Yeah. The blood makes it extra hardcore.
It's a little tighter than I thought it would be. It's pretty uncomfortable. I'm not a shirted bencher. I've only worn a shirt once before, and it was just as uncomfortable.
We're gonna take it really, really slow.
Slow down. Yeah, just help it a little bit out.
Up! Squeeze it. There you go. Pull it down. Put it up. Put it down. Good. Nice. Breaking it in nice.
Yeah, it's working.
What we're trying to do here is slowly build up in weight. At the same time, we slowly increase the range of motion of the shirt so we don't tear it. So if I put on 550 and tried to go to the chest, the shirt would have blown open. So we're trying to get the shirt loosened up.
3-man, so we can place the bar right. And I'm gonna go ahead and steady it on the way down. So.
Up!
Come on now.
Nice.
Stay with it.
Come on now.
Up!
Spear chair on that.
Nice. Those legs into it.
Let's go now. Come on now.
Get that good hand on.
Squeeze that bar.
Up. Slide. Set.
Nice.
I'm gonna do that 590 again raw and see how it feels.
Come on now.
Yep, come on.
Let's go. Come on now.
You guys ready?
Yep, let's go.
Up!
Set.
Lock it. Come on. Lock it.
There we go.
that was 20 pounds away from my biggest max ever, so I'm not disappointed, especially the last set of the workout after all those lifts. But I wanted to get a good feel for the difference between the shirt and raw, and I can see that I've got more explosion out of the base, and that gives me more speed. So my lockout was easier last time. It was harder this time because I had less speed. I had to struggle through that lockout. So clearly there's an advantage to having that shirt. Well, I said I like to include a lot of red meat in the diet. Unfortunately, when I get it at the grocery store, it doesn't taste too good to me. It doesn't last very long. So I like to get my meats from a meat store, and I like to shop with these guys. And usually I know that the quality of the meat's better, and it's going to stay fresher longer, and it just tastes better. There seems to be a huge difference between what I get at a grocery store and what I can get at a good quality meat market. Plus, these guys pre-contest will take care of me. They'll take like a big, huge sirloin tip steak and trim all the fat off of it and run it through a grinder so that I can get some, good ground sirloin that I can eat pre-contest. So my teeth start hurting after trying to eat 4 or 5 pounds of steak a day. So these guys have always taken good care of me. So we're gonna go in and order up some of my meat for the week. In the off season, we'll pick up some lean ground chuck, usually at 90% beef. That'll be a good cut for me. And then, like I said, pre-contest, I'll go to a ground sirloin. I'd probably be about 96, 97% lean beef. And then the steaks here are always better than what you can get at the grocery store. So let's grab a little bit of this while we're here. I'm gonna do 10 pounds of the ground chuck. Just a couple of 5-pound sacks is fine. What do you got for steak? Do you have top sirloin steaks? Sirloin tip? Let me get like 6 of those steaks. Maybe an inch. Yeah, it'll be fine. I like to pick up the sirloin steaks because they're leaner than, say, in New York. We talked about this a little bit. Or a flat iron, and it's just too high in fat for me. Even though I like to get a good 30-40% fat in the diet, sometimes those New Yorks or the flat irons will be as high as 70% fat. So I'll stick with the sirloins. Yeah. That's fine, I'll just take it. Yeah. Let's go back for more. Like I was saying outside, if I buy the grocery store meat, it seems like within a day or two that stuff starts to turn brown and sour out. When I get it freshly ground here at the meat market, that it'll last for a good 5-6 days if I don't burn through it already. It just tends to taste fresher longer, and I just think it's a better quality cut.
6 like this, or
Yeah.
3 like this and cut it in half?
3 like that cut.
Do you want a receipt?
Yeah. Just 1 sack.
This one?
Yeah. Perfect.
It's right over there. He says. Is that one? See you later. We not ready? No, it's okay. So that's fun. Bye. See you later.
I got to mention while I'm thinking about it that last year on stage, Ben White grabbed the microphone and he says, "I'm Ben White, and there's Johnny Jackson, and who are you?" Ben White's in the Bench Press Hall of Fame. He's one of the best bench pressers in the world. He benched at 275-pound weight class. Ben White benched 605. At that weight, at 275-pound weight class, there's probably only 30 guys in the world who have ever benched more than 605. At Ben's weight class, 275 and under, I think there's only 5 guys in the world who have ever benched more than 605 in the 275-pound weight class. And since you're watching my video, you might know who one of them is. So Ben White's in the Bench Press Hall of Fame. He's got a 605 bench press. I beat that. Johnny Jackson's a great deadlifter. He's pulled an 815-pound deadlift. I was looking at Powerlifting USA. Last month they did the 275-pound class, and there was two guys in the last year who have pulled more than Johnny Jackson in the deadlift at that weight class, and one of them's me. So Johnny's a great deadlifter, but I got a bigger number than Johnny. Neither one of them can do both lifts very well. Johnny can't bench 500. And Ben can barely get a 700-pound deadlift. So I'll beat either one of them by 100 pounds. In a 2-lift meet, bench dead, neither one of them will squat against me. I squat well over 800 pounds raw. Neither one of them has ever squatted over 700 pounds raw. So in a 3-lift meet, I'd beat them by over 200 pounds. It's not even close. But it's fun and people are interested.
What do you think your opening lift is going to be?
575.
Thank you.
Going first? What's your opening? Hey Ben, what's your
Open it up with 500.
5? Brand new shirt?
No, it's not a brand new shirt, just get my breathing and everything else right.
I'll tell you, there was a lot. There was an
501. 501. Up to a head referee to correct me. 501, first attempt.
And that attempt officially submitted by Ben Whiteley.
He's out in the gym throwing around a chrome dumbbell. He's in there hanging and banging. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome you out here. Let's go. Let's go on Sunday. Tiny handed off to 501 pounds. Started it off. First attempt of 3.
Breathe before you can see it. Hold your breath and walk out. 2. Up. Got it. 3. Back.
Intervening for Ben's sake, to make sure that he is okay.
Stay laid in there.
On about 3-4 inches, that's reaching the maximum velocity of about 11 miles per hour. We need to ensure that Ben's is okay.
Please give him a round of applause while
And gas flowing here. It looks okay.
All right, my man Stan May coming up next. His first attempt is how much? He just took the bar from 501 pounds to 573 pounds.
Yeah, real quick, some of you may have seen my video last year. Next year, came up and shop with me. We talked about Allison McQueenie, a powerlifter from the state of Washington, since she was 15. Last year was in a tragic boat accident. Lost her leg, has since come back to powerlift again. I fell up here right in the corner. Big round of applause for her.
All right, he's going to go back into the resting ring for a second attempt.
600, 270, what's that? 606.
You didn't tear it, but you probably pulled something. Yeah, so that's it. Okay. No, I think I popped something or an air release or something. I mean, it's not damaged or nothing, but I just feel like I just popped something or released something up in here. So. Yeah, and come on, Stan.
Straight up and through. Go. Come on. Lot of air. Tuck it, tuck it, tuck it.
Hats off to Ben White. He didn't have to be here today. He qualified for the Olympia twice this year. We did Tampa Pro, placing in top 3. I owe him a debt of gratitude for coming here to win the meta competition had he not. He's all right. He's got a big future in bodybuilding. So I'm just glad he's here. We can put on a show for you. So thanks to Ben White.
All right, round of applause for Ben White. For me personally and on behalf of all the powerlifters, thanks for being here. They trained hard for this, and it'll be an exciting time.
Absolutely be exciting. Remember,
Give me a huge round of applause.
same thing. Every rep's the same. I'm doing plate by plate. I'll warm up to about 675 here, do my opener at 765, and then maybe pull an 8. I kind of play that by ear as I feel the weight when I get up there. So we just try and stay tight, stay strong, rest between sets. It's game time. Let the adrenaline take over from there and give a solid pull. I'm trying to make my 2 lift total beat last year's 1338 winning total by over 100 pounds. So that's my goal. That's probably an 820 if I choose to go that high today. Just depending on how I feel after I pull this first lift.
Well, after yesterday and not being able to bench 505, being shortly returned back home, which was his hotel room at the Hilton, he sat on the bed contemplating how the hell did he miss 500? And the only thing that really come to mind is being as a true bodybuilder now. Power is out the window. So as I gather my thoughts and I reach for my suit, I said, there's one last opportunity, and let's put on the show for him. Knock it out. Thank you.
All right, let's get Ben White. Big round of applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Thanks everybody for turning out. It's a great turnout. I really hope all your appreciate all your support. That first pull was kind of rough, and then with you guys out here, the second pull was easy, so I really appreciate that.
90 pounds, ladies and gentlemen. A 90-pound movement. It could be sometime till that is even reckoned close.